The broadcast began without warning, hijacking every screen, every feed, every frequency that carried light or sound. Across the cities of Earth, people froze mid-step as the image of a colossal hall filled with blue fire appeared. In the center stood a figure draped in obsidian robes, a pale mask hiding his face. Behind him, rows of shackled humans knelt beneath the glare of alien spotlights. They were gaunt and silent, marked by the insignia of the Galactic Empire. The voice that followed was smooth, measured, and entirely devoid of empathy. 70,000, the regent said. This is the number of your kind found guilty of resistance. Their punishment shall be a lesson written in light. Captain Rhea Cole stood in the command deck of the Vengeance as the images burned across every screen. Her knuckles whitened against the console. The ship's crew watched in silence, faces pale and rigid. As the executions began, each human atomized by a beam of energy that disintegrated flesh, bone, and soul. The Empire's soldiers stood in neat rows, unflinching. The regent never looked away. "Cut the feed," Rhea said quietly, though no one moved to obey. The broadcast wasn't theirs to control. It was coming from the Empire's central relay, broadcast across the galaxy for all to see. The humans of Earth had been humiliated before, but never like this. Never with such deliberate spectacle. Commander Elias Park, her second-in-command, turned toward her. "They want us to react," he said. "They want a war we can't win." Rhea's eyes stayed fixed on the screen. "Then they've chosen the right soldiers." The transmission ended in static. For a long moment, no one spoke. Outside the viewport, the stars of the frontier burned cold and indifferent. Rhea straightened, her voice steady now. "Give me Admiral Sato. We're done waiting for authorization." When the HoloLink opened, the Admiral's image flickered to life, an older man with a weight of survival in his eyes. "Captain Cole," he began, his tone weary, "you saw the broadcast." "Yes, sir," she replied, "and I'm requesting immediate strike clearance." The source came from Krylos Prime. That's their execution world. "We hit hard and fast." Sato shook his head. "You don't have the numbers, Rhea. The Empire's fleet would crush you before you broke orbit." "Then give me a Black Ops team," she countered. "Ghost Division. We go in silent, take out their relay, and make the galaxy see what they did." There was a pause, long enough for the hum of the ship's engines to fill the silence between them. "You understand what you're asking," Sato said finally. "This won't be sanctioned. If you fail, Earth will deny involvement." Rhea didn't hesitate. "Then we won't fail." Sato exhaled slowly. "You'll have your team. But this isn't vengeance, Captain. It's a message. Make sure the right people hear it." The link faded, leaving Rhea alone with her reflection in the dark glass of the viewport. Her face was pale, sharp-edged, the eyes of someone who had already made peace with dying. The thought of 70,000 lives reduced to ash was a weight she couldn't put down. The Empire believed fear was the final word. She intended to teach them what came after. Down in the hangar, Ghost Division assembled in silence. For soldiers in matte black armor stood waiting beside their drop ship. Mason Vale, the demolitions expert, leaned against a crate, chewing a stem strip as he checked his weapon's power cell. He had the restless energy of someone who only felt alive when things were falling apart. "So," he said when Rhea approached, "we're breaking into the Empire's backyard." "Again." "Not breaking in," Rhea replied. "Burning it down." Dina Core, sniper and scout, adjusted the scope on her rifle. "You realize how suicidal that sounds?" "Good," Mason said. "I was getting bored." Rhea's expression didn't change. "Our objective is to broadcast Citadel on Krylos Prime. We infiltrate, locate the Regent's transmission core, and destroy it. Secondary objective: any opportunity to expose their crimes to the network." Imani Rhodes, the youngest of them and the team's system specialist, frowned. "Their security grid will be wrapped in layered encryption. Even if I can breach it, we'll have minutes before they trace us." "Then we'll make those minutes count," Rhea said. They loaded in silence, every movement practiced and efficient. Ghost Division had been born from desperation, soldiers too stubborn to die, too angry to retreat. Each of them carried the ghosts of colonies lost, friends executed, families erased. They had seen the Empire's cruelty up close and had sworn to be the knife in its shadow. As the ship's engines ignited, Rhea strapped into her seat. Through the small viewport, she could see the curve of Earth far below, blue, fragile, unaware. Mason leaned over. "You think they'll ever know what we're doing out here?" Rhea didn't look away from the stars. "They'll know if we win." The Vengeance detached from orbit and slipped into dark space. The stars stretched, then vanished, replaced by the infinite black of the jump corridor. In the silence, Rhea's thoughts turned inward. She remembered her sister's voice, the last transmission before the Empire's purge of Nova Alexandria. "Don't let them forget us," her sister had said. It had been years, but those words never faded. Hours passed like whispers. When they emerged near Krylos Prime, the view stole the air from their lungs. The planet hung before them, a green and gold sphere wrapped in storm clouds and streaked with lightning. The citadel they sought pulsed at its equator, a colossal black spire visible even from orbit, surrounded by defense grids that shimmered like heat haze. "Transmission relays are active," Imani reported. "The Regent's still broadcasting. Probably propaganda now." "Patch it through," Rhea ordered. The sound that filled the cabin was ceremonial, almost holy. The Regent's voice echoed through static. "The human species has been judged unfit to govern itself. Their defiance invites annihilation. Let this be the proof of our mercy, swift, decisive, eternal." Mason spat on the floor. "Mercy. That's one word for it. Save it," Dina murmured. "We'll speak loud enough when we land." Rhea stared at the planet below, jaw tight. "Prep drop pods. We going hot." As the ship descended into the upper atmosphere, turbulence shook the hull. Lightning flared across the nose, painting the interior in white flashes. Rhea checked her rifle, the motions automatic. Around her, the team did the same, rituals born of survival. Mason grinned through the shaking. "Remind me again why we volunteered for this." "Because no one else would," Rhea said. The ship broke through the clouds, revealing endless jungle broken by rivers of molten gold where the Empire had burned the land to fuel its machinery. The citadel rose in the distance like a wound on the planet's surface, its energy shields glowing faintly through the haze. "Approach vector locked." Park's voice came through the comm. "You'll be dark in 2 minutes. After that, no contact. You're on your own." "Understood," Rhea replied. "Tell the Admiral. If we don't make it back, make sure they play the recording." Park hesitated. "You think people will listen?" "They'll listen to proof," Rhea said. The bay lights turned red. The drop countdown began, 5, 4, 3. She felt the hum of the engines fade beneath her feet, replaced by the sound of her own heartbeat. The door beneath them opened to a world shrouded in storm. Rhea looked at her team one last time. "For Earth," she said. Mason gave a crooked grin. "For the ones they thought we'd forget." The pod released, dropping into fire and wind. The jungle rushed up to meet them, lightning splitting the sky. Above them, the Vengeance vanished into the clouds, leaving only echoes and purpose behind. As the pod pierced the canopy, Rhea felt the tremor of fate ripple through her chest. Whatever waited below, it would not find her begging. The Empire had wanted to make humanity kneel. Instead, it had given them a reason to stand. The briefing room aboard the Vengeance was dark except for the glow of a single hollow display showing the shattered ruins of Nova Alexandria. Captain Rhea Cole stood at attention among her squad, the air thick with the weight of unspoken grief. The image was static, smoke rising over a dead world, cities reduced to molten glass, oceans turned black. No one spoke. No one needed to. The room smelled faintly of ozone and gun lubricant, the scent of men and women who lived in armor and waited for orders that would change the course of history. General Park paced slowly before them, hands clasped behind his back. His expression was carved from stone, but the veins in his temple pulsed with quiet fury. 70,000, he said, his voice a low tremor that filled the chamber. 70,000 of our own, executed while the galaxy watched. The Empire believes fear will keep us obedient. They're wrong. Rhea felt the words anchor themselves inside her. Her squad, Ghost Division, stood in perfect formation behind her. Lieutenant Mason Vale, tall and sharp-eyed. Sergeant Dina Kaur, the demolition expert who never smiled. Corporal Imani Rhodes, the youngest, whose hand still trembled slightly whenever the briefing lights dimmed. These were soldiers forged from loss, bound by a code older than the stars they fought beneath. Rhea looked at each of them and saw the same quiet resolve reflected back. Park tapped the hollow control. The image changed to a wireframe of a sprawling alien citadel, towers spiraling upward like blades. This is the Imperial Command Complex on Krylos Prime. Deep jungle terrain, atmospheric interference, no orbital bombardment possible. That's where the region hides. He turned to face them fully. Operation Retribution will be executed by a single unit. Yours. A ripple of disbelief moved through the squad, quickly suppressed. Rhea's heart thudded once in her chest, not from fear, but from recognition. Ghost Division had always been the weapon used when humanity needed silence more than spectacle. They infiltrated, they eliminated, and they disappeared. She had expected war. She hadn't expected to be the tip of it. Our objective is decapitation, Park continued. You will infiltrate the planet under stealth, locate the Regent, and execute him live on Imperial channels. We will use their own system to broadcast his death to the entire galaxy. His tone didn't waver. We end this the way they began it, on a broadcast. The silence that followed was electric. Rhea felt Mason's gaze on her, searching for some reaction. She gave him none. Instead, she nodded once. Understood, sir. Park exhaled slowly. You'll deploy in 12 hours. Prep your team and gear. The Vengeance will maintain orbit until extraction. He paused as he approached her, voice dropping low. Cole, you've seen the footage more times than anyone. You know what's at stake. Don't make this about revenge. Her eyes lifted to his. It already is, sir. He didn't argue. He only nodded, as if that truth couldn't be denied. When the squad dispersed, Rhea remained behind, staring at the frozen image of the citadel. The spires glowed, faintly blue, elegant and alien. It didn't look like a fortress. It looked like arrogance-made architecture. She wondered how many more worlds it had subjugated before Nova Alexandria. She wondered if the Regent had even blinked when he gave the order. Mason waited for her near the hatch. You think we can pull this off? He asked. We don't have a choice, she replied. If we fail, they win twice. He gave a humorless smile. That's the spirit. She almost smiled back, but stopped herself. There wasn't room for levity now. They walked the steel corridors toward the armory, boots echoing in sync. Everywhere they passed, crew members turned to watch them. Ghost Division had always inspired a mixture of respect and superstition. They were the ones sent when diplomacy died. Inside the armory, rows of rifles and armor modules gleamed under cold light. Dina was already there, calibrating her grenade launcher with methodical precision. They're loading our drop pods now, she said without looking up. Stealth insertion, low orbit. We'll burn through atmosphere blind. Standard Tuesday, Mason muttered. Dina smirked faintly, then her face hardened again. I saw the casualty report. There were kids in that broadcast. Rhea met her eyes. Then we make sure it never happens again. Imani entered last, carrying a data slate. I've mapped the Citadel's power grid. It's decentralized, so we can't shut it down entirely. But if we hit the relay near the central tower, we can cut their internal comms long enough to move unseen. Rhea took the slate, scanning the plan. Good work. Keep refining it. Every second we're on that planet, we're ghosts. The second we're seen, we're dead. As the team prepared their gear, Rhea walked the length of the room, checking rifles, seals, and the dull sheen of adaptive camouflage mesh. Every detail mattered. The Empire's technology might be centuries ahead, but humans had one advantage no machine could replicate. Desperation sharpened into precision. When her own armor was sealed, the HUD flickered alive, casting her face in ghostly blue light. Her pulse synced to the suit, steady and calm. It always felt like stepping into another skin, something colder and simpler than being human. She glanced at her reflection in a polished metal panel and barely recognized the woman looking back. Hours later, as the ship dimmed for pre-deployment, Rhea found herself alone in the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly across the void, quiet and cruel. Somewhere out there, the Empire slept in the comfort of its own power, unaware that humanity's wrath was already coming. She remembered her father's words from years ago, before he died on Titan. "Humans don't start wars, Rhea. We finish them." The comm pinged softly. Mason's voice filtered through. "Captain, everyone's assembled in the bay. I'm on my way." When she arrived, the squad stood in formation before the launch pods, each one a steel coffin lined with drop harnesses. The engines hummed beneath the deck, a vibration that resonated in the bones. The air smelled like fuel and ozone, like the edge of something irreversible. Rhea stepped onto the platform and faced them. "You've seen what they've done. You felt it. But this mission isn't about rage. It's about message. The galaxy needs to see that humanity won't kneel, won't beg, won't vanish quietly into history. We're going to show them that the cost of fear is too high." Dina nodded, eyes hard. "What if we don't come back?" Rhea allowed herself a small, grim smile. "Then they'll remember why they should have left us alone." Mason stepped forward. "Ghost Division, mount up." The soldiers climbed into their pods one by one. Hydraulic locks engaged with a deep, mechanical hiss. Rhea lingered at the hatch, looking at each of them in turn. They weren't perfect soldiers, too stubborn, too independent, but they were hers. The kind of people who didn't need orders to understand what needed to be done. As she sealed her pod, the lights flickered red. The countdown began. 10 seconds to launch. Her heart beat once for each number, steady as a drum. She pictured Nova Alexandria, the faces she'd seen burning into her memory. 5 seconds. The engines roared to life, drowning thought. 3 seconds. Mason's voice crackled through the calm. "See you on the ground, Captain." 2. Rhea closed her eyes. The rage, the grief, the duty, they fused into one unbreakable focus. 1. The pods fired, hurtling into the abyss toward Krylos Prime. The stars stretched into lines of light as the ship vanished behind them. The last thing Rhea felt before the world turned white was the gravity of purpose pulling her forward. Down toward the planet, toward the heart of the Empire, toward justice wrapped in fire. The drop was violent, a controlled fall through fire. Captain Rhea Cole gritted her teeth as the pod rattled and screamed around her, its hull glowing from atmospheric friction. Outside, the world of Krylos Prime burned with green light. Clouds rolled like smoke over endless jungle, a vast sea of alien vegetation swaying under lightning and storm. The pod slammed through the canopy, branches shattering against the armor, and hit the ground with a deafening impact that threw Rhea forward against her restraints. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then the hatch blew open, releasing her into a world that reeked of wet earth and ozone. Her visor adjusted automatically, painting the jungle in layers of infrared and motion detection. Heat signatures flared. Wildlife mostly, but far off, faint and organized, the rhythmic pulse of patrols. She tapped her comms. "Ghost Division status. Veil, down and moving." Mason's voice came through, rough but steady. "Core on the ground. East Ridge looks clear. Roads, I'm okay." Dropped closer to a riverbed. "Form up at grid Delta 7, Rhea said. "Keep to shadow and silence. No lights, no chatter." She moved through the undergrowth, her suit adapting color and texture with every step, dissolving her outline into the emerald gloom. The jungle was alive with sound, distant creatures calling, the hum of alien insects, the faint mechanical whir of drones somewhere above. The humidity pressed against her skin even through the armor. Each breath tasted like metal and rot. 10 minutes later, the squad regrouped in a clearing beneath a colossal tree whose roots were thick enough to crawl through. Mason crouched beside a mound of moss, scanning the perimeter with a microdrone. 3 patrols within half a click, he whispered. "Heavy infantry. Their scanners aren't calibrated for organic camouflage, But if they get close, they'll see us. Rhea nodded. Then we stay invisible. Imani, pull up the route to the Citadel. Imani's fingers danced across her wrist console, projecting a faint blue outline in midair. 2 clicks northeast. Terrain gets rough, marshes, cliffs. There's a supply outpost between us and the main perimeter. We'll need to bypass it or take it down. Dina snorted softly. Bypass means waiting. Taking it down means getting noticed. Rhea studied the map. The Empire's soldiers were methodical, but overconfident. We take it, she said. Fast and clean. No survivors, no transmissions. They moved at dusk, shadows among shadows. The outpost sat in a hollow, surrounded by bioluminescent vines, their light reflecting off metal walls. 2 alien sentries patrolled outside, tall, insectoid creatures with armor fused to their carapace, movements precise and unnatural. Rhea signaled with 2 fingers. Mason and Dina flanked left while she advanced through the undergrowth, pulse steady, rifle raised. The team struck as one. Suppressed fire cracked softly in the humid air. The sentries fell without a sound, their blood smoking against the ground. Inside, the outpost was a cramped metal bunker filled with humming consoles and storage crates. Imani slipped past Rhea, plugging a data spike into the nearest terminal. I can tap into their relay network, she murmured. We'll get a temporary window on local patrol patterns. Mason knelt beside a body, checking its weapon. They've got upgraded plasma rifles. Too heavy for long range, but lethal up close. He looked up. We're not the only ones hunting here. You see the scorch marks outside. Rhea had seen them. Burns that didn't match plasma or standard ordnance. Circular, surgical, like something vaporized from the inside out. Someone else has been fighting them, she said. Maybe another resistance group. Or their own kind, Dina offered. Empires eat themselves from the inside. Imani's voice cut in before Rhea could reply. Got it. Patrol paths rerouted. We have a 90-minute window before they notice interference. Then we move now. Rhea grabbed her rifle and headed out first. The jungle swallowed them again, wet leaves brushing their armor as they advanced toward the Citadel's outer wall. The terrain shifted, the ground softening under their boots. Bioluminescent fungi lit the path like dying stars. The air grew thicker, oppressive. Somewhere nearby, a massive creature let out a low, resonant call that vibrated through their chests. The world of Krylos was beautiful in a way that felt predatory, as if the entire ecosystem had evolved to consume anything brave enough to walk through it. By the time they reached the edge of the Citadel Valley, night had fallen. The Imperial fortress rose like a monolith of black glass, surrounded by stormlight. Towers pierced the clouds, their tips glowing faintly with energy. Around its base, rows of landing pads and gun turrets formed a perimeter of steel and precision. Rhea crouched behind a ridge, magnifying her visor to study the defenses. There, she whispered, pointing. Command spire. That's where he'll be. Mason leaned beside her. You think he's even here? He'll be here, she said. You want to see the galaxy watch us fail. Imani frowned. We're still kilometers out. No clear path in. The field emitters will fry anything that isn't authorized. Then we find a way to make them think we are, Rhea said. We get closer, use their blind zones. The squad began their descent toward the perimeter, moving one at a time through the rain-slicked darkness. Lightning flashed overhead, turning the jungle into a silhouette of silver bones. Every step forward brought them closer to the hum of alien machinery, to the pulse of power that radiated from the Citadel like a living thing. Halfway down the slope, Rhea froze. Her HUD flickered, static rippling across her vision. Hold, she hissed. The interference grew stronger. She switched to thermal, nothing. To motion sensors, nothing. Then, from the corner of her eye, movement. A figure materialized in the trees ahead, shimmering like heat haze. Before she could react, Mason fired. The shot hit air, and the air bled. The invisible shape convulsed, revealing an armored alien scout, its form wrapped in adaptive cloaking. It collapsed with a wet hiss. Dina cursed. Stealth units. They know we're here. Not yet. Rhea said quickly, checking the alien's gear. He didn't have time to transmit. But we can't risk another. Move double time. The final stretch was chaos contained by discipline. The jungle fought them with every step. Vines clutching at armor, roots slick with mud, rain turning the ground into quicksand. Yet they pushed through, guided by instinct and vengeance. They reached the perimeter wall, a seamless barrier of black alloy humming with latent energy. Imani crouched beside a control node. "I can spoof the signal for 2 minutes," she said. "After that, alarms go off." 2 minutes is all we need," Rhea replied. The gate shimmered, then split open silently. Ghost Division slipped inside, vanishing into the metallic labyrinth. The interior of the citadel was colder than she expected, the air sterile and thin. Corridors curved like veins, lit by pale blue light. Somewhere above, the regent waited in his tower, unaware or unconcerned that death was walking toward him. They moved quickly, each turn precise, each breath measured. Then, from behind them, a faint mechanical click. Rhea spun, rifle raised, but it was too late. A drone emerged from the shadows, lenses glowing crimson. It fired a single pulse. The shot hit Imani square in the chest, hurling her backward. She hit the ground hard, armor smoking. "No!" Dina lunged forward, but Rhea grabbed her arm. "Move!" Rhea barked. "She's gone. We can't stop." For a second, Dina's face crumpled, fury and grief colliding. Then she nodded once, sharp and silent. They stepped over Imani's still form and pressed on. Rhea didn't look back. She couldn't. The mission had to live, even if they didn't. By the time they reached the inner gate, her pulse was steady again, her focus absolute. The loss would come later. For now, there was only the next step, the next breath, the next target. Ahead, the corridor widened into the entrance of the central spire. She signaled the team to hold. The hum of alien generators filled the air, deep and resonant. Beyond that threshold was the heart of the Empire. Rhea's voice was a whisper over the comms. "This is it. No turning back." Lightning flared through the skylights above, casting her shadow long and sharp across the floor. "Let's finish this." The corridor opened into a vast chamber that pulsed with light and sound. Captain Rhea Cole moved first, her rifle raised, boots silent against the obsidian floor. The walls shimmered like liquid metal, bending reflections into impossible shapes. In the distance, the sound of machinery echoed, a low, constant thrum that seemed to vibrate in her bones. Behind her, Mason and Dina followed in tight formation, their movements precise, weapons angled toward every shadow. They had lost Imani, but her presence still lingered, guiding them forward like a phantom. Rhea could almost hear her voice in the calm static, reminding her to stay alive long enough to finish what they'd started. The air inside the citadel was cold, unnaturally still. Every surface glowed faintly, illuminated by veins of energy that pulsed with a heartbeat rhythm. Rhea's HUD displayed dozens of potential hostiles, but none moved. "They're not patrolling," she whispered. "They're waiting." Mason scanned the upper balconies, his voice low. "They know we're here. Question is, why let us get this far?" "Because they want witnesses," Rhea said. "Same reason they broadcast the executions. They want to see how far humans crawl before they break." A massive door loomed ahead, engraved with the spiral insignia of the Galactic Empire. Its surface rippled as if alive. Rhea approached, her reflection fracturing into 1,000 ghostly versions of herself. She placed her palm against the metal. The door recognized motion, hissed open, and light poured through, blinding for an instant. The throne room was a cathedral of power. Columns rose like trees of steel, their tops lost in mist. At its center stood the regent, taller than any human, draped in a robe that glowed with embedded circuitry. His mask was the same polished bone she had seen in the broadcast. When he turned, the air itself seemed to shiver. "So," the regent said, his voice carrying through the chamber, smooth and resonant. "The vermin climbed the mountain." How predictable! Rhea stepped forward, lowering her rifle but not her aim. You killed 70,000 of our people. You broadcast their deaths like theater. We're here to close the curtain." The regent chuckled, a hollow sound. "You misunderstand your place. You're not warriors. You are curiosities, fragile things that mistake defiance for strength." Mason muttered, "He talks too much." The regent extended one hand, and arcs of energy crawled across his fingertips. "You believe vengeance makes you powerful. But power, little soldier, is impermanence. The Empire endures. You die." Lightning leapt from his palm, striking the floor where Rhea had stood a heartbeat earlier. She rolled to the side, firing in one fluid motion. The plasma bolt hit the regent's shoulder, but instead of blood, shards of light burst outward, dissolving before they touched the ground. Mason and Dina opened fire beside her, their rifles roaring in controlled bursts. The regent raised a shield of raw energy that bent every round into vapor. "Flank left," Rhea shouted, moving between pillars. The air filled with a metallic tang of ozone and smoke. Dina threw a charge that exploded near the dais, shaking the chamber. The blast cracked the regent's shield but didn't break it. He turned his masked face toward her, and a pulse of energy hurled her backward across the floor. She hit the ground hard, armor sparking, breath torn from her lungs. Rhea darted forward, firing again. Mason mirrored her, weaving between beams of light that sliced through stone like fire. One grazed his leg, sending him staggering. "I'm fine," he gasped, forcing himself upright. The regent advanced with slow, deliberate steps. "You cannot win," he said. "Your fury is impressive, but fury burns itself to ash." Rhea holstered her rifle and drew her combat knife. "Maybe, but ash can choke a god." She sprinted, closing the distance before he could react. The blade met resistance, a field of energy that hummed like a living thing. With a roar, she forced it through, driving the knife into the regent's side. Light exploded outward, blinding white and searing heat. The energy discharged through her backward. She hit the ground, her visor flickering. Through the haze, she saw the regent stagger, his hand clutching the wound that glowed like molten glass. Mason limped toward her, firing short bursts. "He's bleeding light. Finish him." Rhea pushed herself up, vision swimming. Dina, still gasping, crawled to her pack and pulled free another charge, smaller, precise. She looked up at Rhea, eyes fierce. "We end it now." Rhea met her gaze and nodded once. Together, they planted the charge at the base of the throne. Mason covered them, firing until his rifle overheated. The regent straightened, fury radiating from him like heat from a dying star. "You think destruction equals victory? You will inherit only silence." "Then listen closely," Rhea said. "That's the sound of your empire dying." The charge detonated. The explosion ripped through the chamber, tearing apart the throne and the platform beneath it. Energy conduits burst, cascading light through the walls. The regent's scream was not of pain, but of disbelief, echoing through the collapsing hall. Rhea was thrown backward again, the shockwave lifting her off the ground. When she landed, the world spun in fragments of color and dust. She pushed herself up on trembling arms. The regent lay amid the wreckage, his mask cracked, light bleeding from the fractures like fire leaking from a furnace. Rhea stumbled toward him, gripping her rifle. He tried to rise, one hand reaching out, but she kicked him back down and leveled the barrel at his chest. "For every life you took," she said softly. "For every child who burned." He tried to speak, but she fired before he could. The shot burned through his chest, and the light went out. The silence that followed was absolute. Smoke curled upward, painting the ceiling with drifting shadows. The walls flickered as the Citadel's systems failed one by one. Mason limped over, blood soaking through his armor, face pale but determined. "Broadcast link?" he asked. Rhea pointed to a surviving console. "There." Dina staggered forward and reconnected the uplink cable, her hand shaking. The screen flared to life, patching into the same galactic network the Empire had used. For a moment, static filled the feed. Then Rhea's face appeared across every frequency in the known systems. "This is Captain Rhea Cole of the Terran Ghost Division," she said, voice steady despite the exhaustion creeping through her. "To every world that watched humans die, we are still here. To every empire that thinks fear will keep us silent, remember this moment." Behind her, the camera caught the fallen regent, smoke rising from his body, the shattered throne glowing with dying light. Mason stood beside her, battered but unbroken. Dina leaned against the console, watching the transmission go out into the stars. Rhea ended the broadcast and turned toward the corridor. The Citadel groaned, collapsing in on itself as power surges tore through its foundations. "Extraction windows gone," Mason said quietly. "I know," Rhea replied. "But if the message reached home, it's worth it." They moved toward the exit, navigating through fire and debris. The jungle outside blazed where debris had fallen, the sky lit by streaks of descending wreckage. In the distance, the Vengeance orbited above the clouds, its silhouette faint against the storm. As they reached open ground, Rhea paused. The rain began to fall, cold, heavy, relentless. It hissed against the burning remains of the Citadel, extinguishing flames, but not memory. Dina turned to her. "Do you think they'll remember us?" Rhea looked toward the horizon, where lightning forked through the sky. "They'll remember what we did." "That's enough." For a moment, none of them spoke. The sound of the storm was the only thing that existed. Then a low hum filled the air, a shuttle descending through the clouds, its lights cutting through the darkness. Park's voice came over the comm, rough with static. "Ghost Division, do you copy?" Rhea exhaled, a breath that tasted of ash and victory. "We copy. Target eliminated. Mission complete." The shuttle hovered closer, lowering its ramp. Mason helped Dina aboard while Rhea lingered at the edge of the clearing, glancing back one last time at the ruined citadel. She thought of Imani, of Nova Alexandria, of 70,000 lives reduced to ash and numbers. As she stepped onto the ramp, the first rays of dawn broke through the clouds. The light caught her armor, turning it silver. She looked up, voice barely a whisper. "They thought we were prey." Mason met her gaze. They were wrong. The hatch sealed behind them as the shuttle lifted into the sky, leaving the burning world below, a promise written in fire, carried home on the wings of vengeance.